Hey everyone, my name is Chris Lambert, and on this channel we talk Kanye West. And today I wanted to make a video going over the narrative structure of the College Dropout, because this is something that we talk about on our podcast a lot. It's something that I talk about on Twitter a lot, and I never really have a video just to point people to that's an easy overview and breakdown without them having to go and listen to a full podcast episode or like finding an old thread. So if you have ever wanted to know what the story is on the College Dropout, the narrative, the concept, the themes, then this is the video for you. A little bit of background. I'm a novelist, right? And I spend a lot of time deconstructing other narrative work, right? So I'll read books, watch TV shows, movies, albums, and I'm constantly figuring out how did they structure this? How did they tell their story? What structures, what styles, what techniques did they use? How did they take a common structure that we see, the heroic journey, for example, something that movies and books throughout time have used. What twists and turns do they put onto that to make it more unique, or how do they break away from that structure entirely? Just those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about all the time. And I started doing that work with movies on a website called Film Colossus about a decade ago. And 5 years ago, Travis and we had been working on Film Colossus together, decided to do the same kind of thing with Kanye's discography, going through, because we realized his songs not only had narrative elements a lot of the time, but that his albums did as well, with Yeezus being kind of the first breakthrough on that. Like, oh, these aren't just great albums, they're amazing albums. And Yeezus was the first one that we kind of picked apart its narrative and story and what it was doing. And it took us a little while to crack the College Dropout. We went through the album once when we first started the show and didn't really put two and two together. And having gone through the rest of his discography, we started looking at the College Dropout again, and we were like, there's definitely more here than what we had initially known or thought. And a lot of that came through in this first act, specifically the tension between All Falls Down and I'll Fly Away, right? Because you have this directionality of things coming down, crashing down, just looking at the downward trajectory of society that Kanye kind of overviews in something like All Falls Down, contrasted then by this idea of like, I'll fly away. I'm going to get away from this. I'm not going to continue to be dragged down by this environment that I've been forced to grow up in that can be very compromising. And Spaceship is another song that continues that directionality, right? He's looking at a spaceship coming to take him away. There's still this sense of ascendancy. And Jesus Walks is this tension between, is Jesus going to guide me, or is the devil going to bring me down? And having those two tensions between literally like being dragged to hell or taken up to heaven in terms of Kanye's future, it just started to feel like scenes in a movie, right? Like you're getting the introduction to the character's like perspective, who he is, followed then by the world that he's existing in before figuring out what it is he wants and what he's trying to do. And this would essentially correlate to the first 20 minutes of the movie, right? You just have the hero stuck in his humdrum existence with a dream of like leaving home, and then he gets an opportunity to go and do that very thing. And what happens, which is exactly Never Let Me Down. And that makes up the first act of the album. And you can see here, we have it broken into the acts. We Don't Care is just, this is where I'm from. This is who I am. This is the attitude and perspective I have. I'm not I'm not like your typical kind of guy. Like, we don't care what you think. That rebellious attitude that's not only set off in We Don't Care, and from the intro too, like, I want you to do something for the kids, and Kanye comes out with We Don't Care, followed by Graduation Day, where he's just like, man, you're a failure, you're never going to amount to anything. It all plays into this idea of he's a college dropout who's not walking the typical path. And what path is he going to walk? And that's essentially the story that we see play out. And before people are just like, how do you know that there's a story here? How do you know? The main thing that you can really look at is Kanye's life, because our main, I guess, foundation for our lyrical analysis, not even lyrical analysis, but theories that these are narrative albums, is how the albums correlate to the period in Kanye's life before they came out, right? So the College Dropout was Kanye's first album. It was his debut, and he was just a kid in Chicago who got a foot into the music industry and then was looking to become this next big thing. He wanted to be a rapper. He wanted to ascend. He wanted to like be a star. And that's what you see between Act 1 and Act 3. It starts with Kanye in We Don't Care, All Falls Down, Spaceship world, right? Where you can just feel that he's at this low point, just on the everyday average grind, hoping to do bigger and better things. And by the end, we're at Last Call. Like, he has achieved. And even Last Call itself takes us through that exact journey, essentially summarizing the album. And that's the way to look not just at College Dropout, but the rest of the albums in Kanye's discography, is that they are exaggerations, like fictionalizations, hyperbolizations of Kanye's real life. And just each album is exploring what he just went through and capturing it in, if not always like a narrative, a concept. That's mostly just for Late Registration and 808s and Heartbreak, which don't necessarily have that beginning, middle, end, but are just like, here is my world currently, and exploring different topics within that world. But that's kind of the foundation for this. Like, it's nothing too wild of like Kanye's taking us on a space adventure with like characters that are completely different from who he is. It's just like, this is what Kanye has experienced, and he's putting it into a beginning, middle, and end. It's not that different than Good Kid, Mad City, or whatchamacallit, To Pimp a Butterfly, in that those are both Kendrick's journey. One on Good Kid, Mad City is just over the course of like a day or a couple days, right? Where To Pimp a Butterfly is him, essentially like his college dropout story, him going from Compton to having his taste of fame, being compromised by fame, figuring out what he wants to do with his fame before ending To Pimp a Butterfly, having become this butterfly, so to speak, that has grown out of the cocoon and is looking to make changes, improve the world, use his influence. There's a change that occurs to Kendrick over the course of that journey. Kanye doesn't quite have that same like societal, what's my responsibility change on this album. It's just like 27-year-old Kanye being like, hey, like I went from nothing to having everything. A little more one-dimensional than To Pimp a Butterfly, but it still has, I wouldn't say one-dimensional, but if like To Pimp a Butterfly is 3D, this is more like 2D, 2.5D. Just in that way, you still have very thoughtful societal commentary on We Don't Care and All Falls Down and Spaceship, but it kind of gets away from that as a major focus and what Kanye's responsibility is. And that's something he saves a little bit more for My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy and Yeezus and these later albums, rather than up front here. But Act 1 is essentially just like kid from Chicago with big dreams. And you can see a lot of that growth from We Don't Care to Never Let Me Down, which is one of the key things when you're looking at a narrative. They usually have, over the course of a chapter or an arc or a scene, this idea of a change in charge. So if something starts off good, it might end bad. Or if it starts off like not so great, it might end fantastic. That change in charge creates a tension over the course of that chapter. Or in a TV show, you might notice that whatever issue is there at the start of the episode gets resolved by the end of the episode. And you chain enough of those along and you just have a full story that plays out. So you start with We Don't Care, which is just essentially like, we are stuck in this environment, before moving to I have dreams of making it out of this environment, to Never Let Me Down being I am going to make it out of this environment. Like Jay-Z comes into the picture and is on this song with Kanye. And as we know in Last Call, like Jay-Z's kind of the one that takes Kanye out of Chicago and brings him to New York to be a producer for Rockefeller. And he's not signed like as an artist to Rockefeller. He's signed as a producer, but still he's getting taken out of Chicago by Jay-Z, which never let me down. It's not like Kanye's saying like, oh, Jay-Z's here, like I'm leaving Chicago, I'm going to New York, thank you. It's just by bringing Jay-Z into the song, it's symbolic of what we see happen in Last Call and what we know from the actual story that occurs, which is why then the next song is Get 'em High. And notice that there's a change. Like Spaceship, you just have like Consequence and GLC also having guest verses where they're just like, we are stuck in similar situations as Kanye, we're looking for our spaceship too. Where on Get 'em High, you have Common and Talib Kweli, right, coming in, who are already established stars doing their established star thing. That's the company that Kanye's keeping. And now, instead of looking at societal issues and hoping about that he's going to have this change in his life, he's worried about getting like numbers from girls and impressing them. And he's kind of falling into a little bit more of the celebrity aspect. But a lot of this section is defined by Kanye trying to please other people. Get 'em High is a song about like, can we get people to put their hands in the air and like get them high, like make people excited, like put your hands up. He's trying to wow the crowd with his songs, but it's not necessarily working, which is why he's bringing in Common and Talib, right? And then Workout Plan is a similar thing with New Workout Plan, where he's creating this sales pitch to these women to help them get an NBA player, to get a baller. And he's trying to make this music that they're going to consume because it's essentially like snake oil, right? Like, I will sell you this thing, you know, just sign up for my new workout plan, listen to me, listen to my music. Like kind of cult leader salesman like in how he's trying to get these women. And the song comes off like a little sleazy in some ways, or a little like ridiculous, and it's supposed to. That's like the whole theme of this section, is that Kanye's trying too hard to get fans or to get noticed and make music that people are going to consume that's going to make him a big deal, right? There's a little bit of a front about it. And Slow Jams is like that as well, is where like Jamie Foxx is saying like, you know, the women just, you know, they're dancing to all these songs and they just want somebody to slow it down. And Kanye's like, oh, I'll do that. I'll be that guy. Like, I'm going to bring in a little Luther Vandross, you know, I'm going to mix this up. And even in the middle of the song, you have the girl then being like, hey, I know we asked you to slow it down, but can you speed it up? And as that kind of demonstrates that he's trying to make this music for other people and giving them what it is that they want, but what they really want is like all over the place. It can change moment to moment. So you're trying to give them the slow jams, but they still want to go fast. So then Kanye needs to bring Twista in, and Twista does his thing. And on the one hand, it is just a clever way to bring Twista in and merge those two styles, from Kanye doing his chopped up soul sample, right, to Twista doing his like speed spit or speed rapping. But it also serves this purpose in this middle section of the album of Kanye just kind of at a loss for what his sound is, as he's trying to just make music for other people. And as he describes in Last Call, that's really essentially all he was doing at that point. He was producing for other people, giving them what they wanted, giving them what like the radio hits would be, but not necessarily making the music that he wanted to make, right? Like he can make a Heart of the City, he can make the beat to H the Izzo, but is that the Kanye song that Kanye wants to make, or is he just making this beat that's going to pop off and is exciting? I mean, there's a lot of good that comes from making an H to the Izzo production, right? But it's not necessarily like all falls down. So then you get Breathe In, Breathe Out, and Kanye calls this out like specifically on Breathe In, Breathe Out, which is one of my favorite things about the song. I know that this is often thought of as one of the worst songs, if not like the worst song on College Dropout. You look at all the main songs, right? Like We Don't Care, 430 page views, All Falls Down, 1.2 million, Spaceship, 450K, Get 'em High, 350K. Breathe In, Breathe Out only has 193 page views, like way less than everything else, because people don't care about it as much as the rest of the other songs, right? And it seems more straightforward. It's just like breathe in, breathe out. If you iced up, pull your sleeves out, push a big truck, pull your keys out, girls go wild and pull your D's out. It's like humorous, but kind of stupid. And Kanye right away says, golly, more of that bullshit ice rap. He's even aware that this is just like bullshit ice rap, just bragging about these things that he has, and says, I got to apologize to Mos and Quelly, but is it cool to rap about gold if I told the world I copped it from Ghana and Mali? And he brags about Benz in a backpack and ice chains and his Cardi lens in a knapsack. Always said if I rapped, I'd rap about something significant. This is a key line, right? Because at the start of this album, he was rapping about significant things. We Don't Care is thoughtful and significant. All Falls Down, significant. Spaceship, significant. Jesus Walks, significant. Never Let Me Down, still beautiful and thoughtful. These middle songs, no, not really. Like, significance and thoughtfulness kind of goes out the window in these songs. It's humor, it's clever, it's interesting, but a lot of it is just superficial and egotistical and indulgent, right? In a way that, like, School Spirit, Two Words, Through the Wire, Family Business, Last Call's indulgent, like, right? But it's celebratory. But these songs are way more thoughtful and way more in line with Act One than this middle bunch, and Kanye is calling it out. But now I'm rapping about money, hoes, and rims again, and it's still all about the Benjamins. He even says, what the hell was wrong with me, dog? Like, yeah. Kanye's very aware that this song is dumb, but it's purposefully that way. It's sarcasm, it's satire. And the big thing about saying that I gotta apologize to Mos and Quelly, right? And you look at the title, Breathe In, Breathe Out. Mos and Quelly made up the group Black Star right here. And they came out with this album that was kind of like their debut. They didn't have their individual debuts. They dropped Black Star as this joint album together. And it is one of my favorite albums of all time. I think is one of the best rap albums of all time. Has some of the best bars, best rapping. These two were on another level. And one of the premier songs on this album is called Respiration. And it's a fantastic, thoughtful, thought-provoking song, as most of all of these are. They were really, in the wake of the violence in hip-hop in the 90s, this album was Mos Def and Talib being like, yo, this violence is stupid. We need to stop destroying our communities from within and be supporting one another and working together and like coming together as a group, because look at everything that's messed up in society. Like, we are powerful, we should be together. And you have this great social commentary, this great commentary on hip hop, this call to arms and call to working together. And Respiration is one of these just dynamic, thought-provoking songs. Like, you check out the chorus, so much on my mind that I can't recline, blasting holes in the night till she bleeds sunshine. Breathe in, inhale vapors from bright stars that shine. Breathe out, weed smoke retrace the skyline. Heard the bass ride out like an ancient mating call. I can't take it, y'all. I can feel the city breathing, chest heaving against the flesh of the evening. Sigh before we die like the last train leaving. Like, it's just this moment of like sitting there in the night, breathing deeply, feeling a vibe, being thoughtful and reflective, and then speaking about society. Like, these verses are deep and thoughtful, but the clear thing here is breathe in, breathe out, right? And the song's called Respiration because you're taking this moment to pause, you're taking this moment to think. Black Star, with a feature of Common, poetically described the hard knock life in New York with the gangsters of Gotham and the oppressive smog of the city, which obscures the idea of purity. So when Kanye comes in naming this song Breathe In, Breathe Out, right? It's not just like, oh, goofiness. He is dumbing down respiration. And that's why he's got to apologize to Mos and Quelly, because he sees them doing a song like Respiration, and then he's making a song like Breathe In, Breathe Out, which Kanye's capable of something as thought-provoking as Respiration, right? He already did All Falls Down on this album, but he's caught in this period of making superficial music because he thinks that's what he needs to do to succeed. And this is the tipping point of that. It's the low point. In the movie world or in the narrative world, you call this the nadir. It's the spot where everything seems to be going wrong for the character and they've lost their way and they need to find a way to get back to the good graces of their friends or to fix the thing that they had messed up before they can succeed and have a victory. And that's what we see start to happen in this next part. You have skit 1, which we get these like school spirit skits, right? Which they are describing Jimmy, who essentially just is following the rules of everything that you're supposed to do, right? Like you go to college, you get your degree, and you're like doing everything by the book, but it cripples you and it keeps you on a path that doesn't let you have your character, it doesn't let you be who you are. You like end up working for the boss's like secretary who never went to college. She just knows the boss. Like, because you're following the rules, you're never having sex. Like, you're just satisfied by doing what you're told, and how kind of dumb that is. And Kanye doesn't want to be that person. That's exactly what he was going against in Act 1 with that intro, and we don't care in Graduation Day, right? He wasn't following the rules. He wasn't doing what people were asking from him. And that's what school spirit gets at. He is recapturing that school spirit, that dropout spirit of somebody that's going to go against the grain and not follow the rules. Like, I'm going to get on this TV, mama. I'm going to put shit down. Like, this is somebody that's getting back to their roots. This is somebody that's re-energizing themselves, finding that vigor, that vitality, and going to kill it, going to crush it. And that's what this song gets at. And then you get the next skits of just like Jimmy being dumb again, right? And just kind of sticking along. Like, you get your bachelor's, you get your master's, get your master's, get your doctorate. And then when you die, what's going to keep me warm? Like, those degrees. And then little Jimmy, like, not only did Jimmy kind of ruin his life by following the rules, little Jimmy, his kid, just doesn't know anything about his dad, is on the wrong path, and sitting there going like, what should I do with these degrees? Am I going to do exactly what my dad did? Kanye's setting this up as like a generational situational problem, which kind of calls back to his not only critique of the music industry and just what other artists do in the music industry, but also a critique of society in general, right? And how people just do what they're supposed to and end up in these situations that keep them down and keep them not just down, but keep them kind of wishing for superficial things, like naming your kid a Benz because, or what is it? Named your daughter Alexis because you can't afford a Lexus, right? You get caught up in the superficial because that's what they tell you to worry about, that you should have nice clothes, that you should have nice cars, worry about this rather than getting ahead. And Kanye's tired of that. And he's tired of seeing people fall into that pattern because that's what their parents did. They just did what they were supposed to, so the kids do the same thing. Kanye's not for that. So then it's after this kind of breakthrough that we get this final sprint of 2 words, Through the Wire, Family Business, and Last Call. And 2 words really returns Kanye to this first act energy of being thoughtful, socially aware, socially commentating, right? It's like talking to the streets. It's talking about United States. It's making a call to arms. You have this outro like motherfuckers asking, who is that? You know, it's the almighty Blackjack, Mos Def, K West, ghetto people, get this shit off your chest. North to the south, to the east, to the west, Blackjack Johnson, it's no contest, and show it to him. Like, this whole song's talking about everybody, like, you know, hustlers, busters, boosters, hoes, throw your hands up. Like, we're going to do something. We're going to make moves. We need to come together. It's that call to arms that's really in line with what Black Star is doing. And it's meaningful that Kanye has Mos Def on this song, right? Because before he's saying that I need to apologize to Mos Def and Talib Kweli, and he had Talib on Get 'Em High just calling him to be like, yo, tell this girl that I know you. And now he's back to rapping with Mos about something like serious. Kanye's back on the energy or back on the vibe that he should have had, and is making a thought-provoking song with one of the most thought-provoking artists of the time, you know? And then you have Freeway too, who has a great verse on this track. And he follows that up with Through the Wire, which is kind of the song that kickstarted Kanye's rapping career, right? So it's like he gets back to consciousness and has his accidents. Through the Wire is the song that then makes him big as he raps through the wire, and of his jaw being wired shut. And it's just his passion, his drive, his energy, his thoughtfulness. It's all there. He's not going to be another Jimmy. His school spirit's there, and it's going to elevate him, and he's never going to be kept down again. Family Business is kind of this nice... There's a duality to Family Business because it's a nice step back in terms of the intensity that we had gotten from the last two songs. And there's something really thoughtful and personal about this song, which is why it's one of like a lot of people's favorite songs on the College Dropout, because it's not just intense social commentary. It's not music industry stuff. It's just Kanye rapping about like dinners with his family and stories with his family. The irony there, though, is that it's not Kanye's family. You can see here the stories in the song are not actually all about Kanye's family. Tori, I don't know how to say her name, who sings They Don't Mean a Thing toward the end, helped Kanye with the stories. Kanye was like, I need this to be about real life family. I'm the oldest of 48 grandkids on my mom's side, and I'm in the middle of 36 grandkids on my father's side, which is wild to me. So when he said, I need material, I was like, I got plenty of material. Terry went on to tell Kanye about taking baths with her cousins, sleeping 6 in a bed, and her auntie, who is known for her bad cooking. In fact, at the end, when Kanye says, let's get Stevie out of jail, he's actually referring to Terry's godbrother, which is kind of wild too. And even here, is it here or is it here? Yeah, these lines are reminiscent and very similar of a memory shared back in 1996 by Ghostface on All That I Got Is You. So there's something that Kanye is just kind of like borrowing these stories about family. You might be like, then what's the point of the song if it's not about Kanye's family? So much of this album is about Kanye trying to get into the music industry, right? In the first act, he's outside of it. In the second act, Jay-Z brings him in, but he's struggling to find his way. In the third act, he has established his voice and established what he's going to do. He's joining the pantheon of hip-hop artists. And that's what we see even in Last Call when Kanye recaps the story that's behind the album. He talks about like getting signed. The big thing is that he gets signed and now he's a rapper. That's all that he wants, is to be a rapper. So there's something to the song that's not just about like Kanye's family, right? But it's also about joining the family of rap and being another one of the artists in this like business, in this family, and that things that go on in the business, that's family business, you know? There's things that stay between you all. And Kanye's recognizing that, he's acknowledging that, and he's saying like, I'm going to do my part to contribute to this thing that we're all a part of, which maybe in some ways takes away from the song, but just in the fact that like it's not Kanye's family, he might just be talking more about like the rap industry as a whole and like joining that family. But I still think it's a song that everybody can appreciate, right? Because it recalls being part of something, whether that's your own family or your friends group, or being able to recognize this as like work and the family that you have at work. Like the idea of family can be different for different people, or even to one person in different aspects of your life. Like you have your work family, you have your like friend family, you have your family. And this song kind of captures that and does give us a little bit of a reprieve from the intensity of the rest. It's like a nice softening of the edge that had kind of been in the album since Get 'Em High, which transitions us nicely to Last Call, right? Where you just have Kanye in celebration mode because he's successfully made it. And now he is part of this family. He's part of this business. He's a hip hop artist and he's dropping his first album. And Last Call has Kanye celebrating the success of the College Dropout before College Dropout was even a thing, right? Where's the line? Come on. Yeah. Uh, the all around the world digital underground Pac, the Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer of the rock. I take my chain, my 15 seconds of fame, and come back next year with the whole fucking game. Ain't nobody expect Kanye to end up on top. They expected that College Dropout to drop and then flop. He wrote this before the album came out, and like, he's the College Dropout, right? They expected Kanye to release an album and flop. They expected the album itself to release and flop. It's a nice duality, but he's saying it in the past tense, and the album hasn't even come out, and it went #2 overall. It was a hugely successful debut, and Kanye had a ton of successful singles from it. Like, he called his shots, which is exactly what the reference is here, with Babe Ruth apparently calling his shot in the what was it, a World Series or just a game? He's just like, I'm gonna hit a home run, here we go. And that's what Kanye did. And then you get the whole outro, right? Which is the story that we essentially just described. I mean, the fictional version of it is always going to be a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more heightened in ways, right? At once, like, more serious and more cartoony. But you can see the general flow in this album as it corresponds to the general flow that Kanye has in this outro, like the same kind of step-by-step events. Things are a little bit more realistic in the literal story, but the same events essentially take place as Kanye tells the journey of the college dropout, from dropping out of actual college and becoming a successful musician to dropping out of what the business would have wanted from him or what expectations were for him, and becoming an artist in his own right. So College Dropout doing a lot of cool things in a way that I don't think gets recognized enough. I mean, this album is considered a classic. It recently made Rolling Stone's list of 500 best albums of all time. A lot of people still look at this as like a top 3 Kanye album, if not the best Kanye album. For a lot of people, this is the best. But I still think even then, the narrative aspect of it is often unknown, especially when you compare it to how much everybody gets that Good Kid, Mad City and To Pimp a Butterfly are narrative albums, right? You ask anybody, is there a story on those albums? They go, yeah, of course. And that's because Kendrick makes sure he lays out these very, like, I'm going to say obvious beats, but I don't mean that in a bad way. He just telegraphs it in a way that everybody can follow along. But that's not the route that every artist goes, right? Just like you have some movies that make their themes much easier to follow than other movies. Like, you compare something like Waterboy and how, like, the Adam Sandler movie, and how it deals with Adam Sandler needing to break away from his mom's control. And that's the major theme that they just push into your like mind over and over again to where you can't miss it, versus a movie like Full Metal Jackets or Eyes Wide Shut or even 2001: A Space Odyssey, where Kubrick doesn't force the themes on you as obviously, to where you actually have to sit there and be like, all right, what was he trying to do here? What was he trying to say? Not that one's any better than the other, right? Because for the one, you can be right on board and just engage with what's there. You don't have to sit there thinking about it over and over and over again. You can just watch and enjoy. But in the second, there's still something fun about deconstructing it, figuring out yourself, the little more puzzle of it. And because it's not so straightforward in what it's telling you, there's more room for application and interpretation of what's going on. And that's something that we see with Kendrick going from Good Kid, Mad City to Pimp a Butterfly, to Pimp a Butterfly to Damn, in that Good Kid, Mad City is the most obvious in terms of what its story is, how it's telling its story. To Pimp a Butterfly goes a little more abstract, but not much more abstract. It still gives you all the signposts you need. It still kind of helps you follow along and holds your hand a little bit. So while there is more room for interpretation of certain tracks or certain aspects to the story, the general story is easy to follow along with if you're paying attention to the guideposts that he puts down. Damn, he removes all those guideposts and there's no hand holding. And Damn is the most controversial of the albums, as some people think it's the most simplistic versus the other two, where you have others that think it's the deepest versus the other two. And that's what happens when you move into more of that abstract realm, or not telling people what they should be taking away from it, but showing people. And that's one of the things that College Dropout does. It shows more than it tells in terms of its story, which is why here we are 16 years later, and the story still isn't commonly talked about in the same way as Good Kid, Mad City or To Pimp a Butterfly. But I think as the years progress, and hopefully I'm like, Travis and I aren't the only ones making this claim, but it's going to have more and more people realizing the narrative on this album, as well as the narratives on Graduation, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, Yeezus, The Life of Pablo, Yay, and Jesus is King. And I'll be making videos on all of those if you want to listen to those videos and just get a good understanding of an overview of the story, right, that's on each album. And if you want details, like specific, like deep dives into each song, our podcast is the best place for that. Currently, right now, as of September 30th, 2020, our College Dropout season is available on iTunes and Spotify. It's our public season. And then the rest of our catalog is available on Patreon, patreon.com/Kanye podcast. And you can listen to all of our seasons. There currently, we're going through late registration for the second time, and really like finding out some great things about how it's structuring the themes that it has. I'll be making a video on that later just to give more of an overview, but we're releasing 2 episodes a week, and we'll go back to our second time through Graduation after that, 808s, etc. So if you want to listen to all of our old episodes and the new episodes as soon as they come out, then patreon.com/Kanye podcast. Otherwise, you can buy my books on Amazon, and just look up Chris Lambert, Killer Unconquered. There's also Killer and Victim. And then if you want to support the channel, just the easiest way is liking, subscribing, or commenting, as those things tell YouTube that this is a channel people enjoy, and then they show it to more people, which goes a long way, especially for videos like this, just getting recommended in the sidebar. But that's all I got for now. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them below. And until next time, stay wavy and keep it loopy. Cheers.